Casper. I just wanted to let you know we want to have some time at the end of this meeting to talk about possible topics for future meetings. And so I just want to acknowledge that you brought up a really important point, and it's something that we can possibly continue on at further meetings. I'll shut up and let you go.
All right, so again, I'm Nicole Grant, Senior Policy Advisor for Mayor Wheeler. I've been running my mouth. These are these interim kind of meetings as a placeholder before kind of PSEP is established are being hosted by the mayor's office for one year. PSEP, the Portland Committee on Community Engagement, will be hosted by the PSEP. We're looking for this to be stepping away. The mayor is stepping away. Maybe
We can do it. We can talk at our next meeting.
Jones.
Okay.
I know she was looking at this now. We're more honest than you guys as far as the flyers go, because you guys got flyers on me, Chris, and Eli, and we've never been able to get a copy of them, and every time we ask, no one knows anything about them. Okay, this was made from a copy of 1 year intelligence flyers. Alright, and it was edited from an intelligence flyer. I know she wanted a picture of it, so I thought maybe.
I'm sorry.
Outlaw, I noticed you took a picture. You want this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This was a copy of one of your intelligence flyers that was edited for cop watchers.
Okay.
You guys still continue to say that there's no bulletins
How am I a sex trafficker?
suspected
Close this because we can hear you from here.
How am I suspected of trafficking?
because Portland's #1 in child sex trafficking. When you were in Oakland, there was a big scandal with a child having sex with several police officers, where several chiefs were fired.
And I had nothing to do with that.
Well,
And all investigations show that. So what's that got to do with me? And how come you couldn't find a better picture?
I
the
wasn't
best
the one
picture
that
you
made
can
the
find?
flyer. Someone else
You know,
did.
if y'all make the flyers, at least put a decent picture of a sister on there.
So I'm just letting you know that we managed to get a picture of one of the flyers that you guys are passing out
Okay.
to law enforcement and security guard agencies, and it's a camera picture.
Okay.
And we would greatly appreciate you guys providing one of those flyers to
I
us.
don't even know what flyer you're talking about.
You don't? Let's see.
Oh, good, great. Watch out. Okay, we'll try to. Nice to meet you.
Nice to
Finally.
meet you as well. You too.
This one right here.
Mind if I make it bigger? Huh. Okay. When is that from? When is that from?
All I know is it's from the Portland Police Bureau. One of the cop watchers seen it at the DA's office. And I went up and took a picture of it. I talked to them there, and they said it's a Portland Police flyer.
Okay. So you guys made this because you saw that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right.
I just wanted to see it. You can have it back if you want it. You want it?
I got 5 of them.
All right.
All right.
Be safe.
You too.
For mental health, I would never think about calling IPR for mental health. I mean, I'm
with final council approval on August 24th, right? So that's opposed to, I think COAB was disbanded in late January. And then August 24th, council approved the PSEP plan, so that's about 8 months, right? Part of the approval of the PSEP plan involved a commitment to hire an organizational development consultant. The city is committed to getting this right. I will say it again, I don't have the skill set, right? I am not a consultant. I can't speak to organizational change. I can't speak to kind of what's needed for community building. I'm not a community organizer, right? I'm trained as a lawyer and I write policy. That's what I do, right? So I'm recognizing my limitations as an individual and encouraging the city to hire an organizational consultant. That's also recognizing the city's limitations as well. So that really started the RFP process last fall. And that's effectively kind of where we are right now, and Mandy will get into that. But again, I want to say that with PSEP, and also with this meeting as well, right? This is about providing updates to you all. And so one update that I actually wish the Bureau had provided is that we are doing implicit bias training. That's a big deal. Not just equity training, right? We will be training our officers to recognize their own implicit biases and their interactions with community members. Right, that'll be a part of their annual in-service training, and they've pulled in doctors to help us with this, right? I sat in on a train the trainer earlier this week and also last week, and frankly, I was really impressed. Incredibly progressive. I don't really know of any other jurisdictions that are doing this, right? But that's the kind of information that's not being shared and that you all need to know, and that you deserve to know. And I think it would go a long way. I'm not a Portlander. I live here, I've been here for 2.5 years, I probably can't claim the town, I'm from the East Coast, I'm from Maryland. And so as a black woman, it's very difficult for me to be here. And it's very important that our police bureau be responsive to different constituencies. And so looking at the purpose of the PSEP, with this focus on mental health and this focus on racial justice, PSEP will be empowered to, per the PSEP plan, what council authorized, right, to identify directives, right, policies for review, right. The Bureau already has a schedule of policies that will be reviewed at a certain time. But if something happens and the community says, for example, we want to see the crowd management directive, we want that reviewed, regardless of whatever schedule currently exists. PSEP is authorized, right, to pull that off schedule and review it, and to work with the Bureau on that policy. And that's really important. That is not something that we've seen before with community engagement. It's not something that we saw before with the COAB. And I just want to be really clear that this is building on the work of the COAB. And so to answer Mr. Wolf's question from earlier about the COAB recommendations, PSEP will be reviewing those recommendations. And they'll be honoring those recommendations and working with the city on those recommendations. They didn't die. They didn't die. They're there. And I will hurry up and finish my points. I don't think I have anything else to say. I'm going to give it to Mandy to kind of update you all on where we are with the RFP and also the process generally.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me ramble.
And then what I'm wanting to do is make sure we've got time for you all to ask questions of us, and also to have about 5 minutes at the end so that we can talk together a little bit about what we'd like to see at the next month's forum. So with all of that having been said, I'm going to walk you through just briefly the timeline for two very important parts of the PSEP development process. One is hiring a facilitator to support the creation and establishment of the PSEP. And then the second part is actually selecting PSEP members themselves. So the first step is to find a facilitator to help us create that process. We released an RFP at the beginning of the year, and we did not receive many at all responses. And the responses that we did receive, we did not feel fit the bill of who and what we were looking for in terms of a consultant. And so we had a panel of community stakeholders who were the evaluation committee for that RFP, and we were a great working group, and we worked together after we reviewed those RFPs and canceled that RFP to create a new one that we thought was better written, better reflective of who we were looking for. So we reissued that. The closing date for that RFP, is a request for proposals, if you're not familiar with that term. So the deadline for that is March 12th. And then basically in the month of March, our evaluation committee will review those the RFPs, and we'll conduct interviews, and then we'll make a selection in the first week of April. So we'll have our facilitator on board at that point. And the role of that person is to do a number of things. First of all, it's the facilitator will sit down with the city and look at the PSEP plan that is out on that table over there and poke a bunch of holes in it and figure out what needs to be clarified in this plan. And probably what needs to be clarified now, what should the PSEP weigh in on once they're appointed. So that will be one of their tasks. They're also gonna support, yes.
I'm sorry, can I ask, who's we, when you say we?
Sorry, I use that term a lot, and thank you, no.
Yeah, I just was wondering who.
Appreciate that, no, it's the facilitator will do this. I will be working closely with the facilitator to do all of this, but we are hiring someone who we hope to have expertise in group development. We would like to have someone who's got experience or an understanding of mental health practices. So what I would really like to see is a facilitator who understands how to do trauma-informed facilitation of this group, how to do recovery-focused and strength-based work with this group, so that the way we shape the PSEP is reflective of how we want these meetings to be, and that at the foundation of it, and my bias is I am a former mental health practitioner, and this is about mental health, so we really want the facilitator to help us create a PSEP process that supports community input, helps create a safe place for people with all different kinds of backgrounds to be here and participate. And let me make sure I hit all of my other bullet points for what they're going to be doing. They're also going to be creating our onboarding and training program for PSEP members. They will also help organize the retreat for PSEP members so that they can solidify for a group. And then another important piece is helping the PSEP create its first year work plan. And I would say that overall with the facilitator, this is not a position that's meant to stay in this process forever. We want someone to help, just come in and help the city and the PSEP create a new way of doing this work, right? That doesn't look like the way that we did this work last time. The PSEP we want to have be empowered essentially to create and shape how they want to do this work. So that to me is the fundamental change, right, between COAB and PSEP, is that the work we need to do right now, and that's the work of the facilitator, and it's also my job, is to help facilitate a process that will look different and actually be something we co-create together as community. So that's the facilitator. Look how I try to make everyone talk on time and then I drag. And then very briefly, to let you all know, the PSEP selection process. So per the PSEP plan, City Council is in the process of finalizing their appointments for a selection advisory committee. So it's going to be 5 community stakeholders who will advise the mayor on the selection of PSEP members. So PSEP will be a 9 to 11 member board. City council members will first do a very rough screening of all applications just to make sure essentially that they've met all of the basic requirements for applying to the PSEP. And then it is this 5-member selection advisory committee that really goes through the applications, that decides who should be interviewed. They will interview their choosing of candidates. They will make a final selection of the mayor. And the mayor will interview final candidates, and then he ultimately has the decision to make those selections. So just very generally, so that we have enough time for you all to ask questions and talk to us, that timeline, the Selection Advisory Committee will start meeting very soon, actually, in the next week. The application will go live March 30th, and it will be out for 2 months. So at that point, the Selection Advisory Committee's job is to do community outreach and make sure that as many people as possible know about the application. We can support people in applying for the PSEP. And then applications will close on May 30th. So it's the month of June that we will be reviewing, I shouldn't say we, that the Selection Advisory Committee is reviewing its applications, and they will conduct their interviews. So by the end of June, it's right in front of me, June 29th, the mayor will make his final selection of PSEP, and then July we start to get them onboarded and trained. So these forums I've scheduled out to happen through the month of July. Maybe and I expect the PSEP to be up and running either July or August. That's my expectation. I want to be very respectful that we need our facilitator in place so that we co-create this plan together, but right now that's the timeline I'm looking at. So, all of that having been said, sorry, go ahead, Judith.
Well, I was going to suggest before you take questions, Can we talk about the best way to get feedback and what people would like to see next month? Because I wanna be sure we don't miss that.
Yes.
So, we could take a few call outs of what people would like this meeting to look like next month, but, also, people can make sure to get your,
Yes, my
your
email
contact
address.
information, so people can contact Mandy with what they'd like to see, and then she'll do the magical, balancing job of trying to make it all available
Yeah.
to you in a reasonable amount of time.
I have business cards that I'll put out on the table. In full disclosure, I hidden them because they still say COAB on them. But I have them, so I'll leave them out, and feel free to call or email me with suggestions and ideas, both for topics and for the format. I'm open to anything you have to say. If you didn't like this room set up, let me know. If you know, so really,
Okay.
there's the way we set